The construct didn't have a name in any spoken language. The Galactic Council simply called it the Vault. It was a Dyson ring, not around a star, but encircling a tear in space-time itself. It was the legacy of the Ethelgard, a civilization that had reached Kardashev Type 3 eons ago. They had harvested the energy of entire galaxies, solved mortality, and then, according to archaeology, simply moved on. Ascended to Type 4 or 5, leaving this reality behind like a shed skin. They left behind the Vault, guarded by an AI known as the Sentry. In the early centuries after its discovery, the younger races did not seek permission. They sought entry. They fired stellar lances at its surface. They launched antimatter drills. They attempted to carve into it with weapons that had cracked planets open. The Vault did not react. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the attacking ship vanished. Not exploded, not disabled. Gone. Its weapon vanished with it. Its escorts vanished moments later. Sensors showed no debris, no radiation, no energy release. Only absence, clean and absolute, as if the ships had been erased from existence itself. The message was understood. The Vault could not be forced. From that point onward, no species attempted physical intrusion again. The only entity that ever acknowledged their presence was the Sentry, and so they changed their approach. They tried to reason with it. They tried to hack it. They tried to prove themselves worthy of whatever logic governed its purpose. For 5,000 years, since the younger races discovered it, the Sentry had remained silent. Every other cycle, the galaxy's high minds tried again, each time armed with newly developed technology, refined logic, or breakthrough methods they believed would finally unlock the Vault. The crystalline Zilth brought successively more advanced quantum supercomputers. The scions of Beta 9 returned with deeper, more unified collective consciousness states. Others brought recursive AI constructs, paradox-resolving algorithms, and proofs that had reshaped entire civilizations. They all operated under one assumption. The Ethelgard were supreme intellects. Therefore, the key to their power must be perfect logic. They threw equations at the Sentry. They recited proofs of universal constants. They tried to outthink a god. The Sentry just analyzed them. For 5,000 years, it indulged every possible approach. It graded every logical theorem, debated their deepest philosophical treatises, and disassembled every desperate quantum hack, every supercomputer they threw at it. It casually pointed out the flaws in their math, coding, and the hypocrisies in their morals, usually in nanoseconds. While its specific critiques varied, the core, inescapable judgment echoing across the millennia was always the same. Your patience is noted, your inadequacy is terminal. Then, the humans arrived. Humanity had only been FTL capable for 2 centuries. Like all newly arrived species, they were expected to behave with deference, to treat the elder races as mentors, to listen more than speak, to learn their place in the vast hierarchy of the galaxy. Humans did not. They arrived with an unsettling casualness, inserting themselves into galactic affairs as if they had always belonged there. The kind of species that walks into a million-year-old club and immediately rearranges the furniture. The elder races did not see confidence. They saw immaturity. To the ancient high minds, humans were loud, leaky, and embarrassingly emotional. The galactic equivalent of toddlers wandering through a toy store, touching everything without understanding its value. While the Volcari diplomats were deducing the mathematical proofs of the Vault's shielding, humans were usually busy trying to figure out if the atmosphere was breathable enough to smoke in. So it was an amusing surprise when a human ship arrived. It wasn't a pristine exploration vessel or a gleaming diplomatic cruiser. It was a patch-welded freighter named the Rusty Bucket. Its hull plating didn't match in color or origin. External conduits ran along its surface like exposed veins. One engine emitted a faint, uneven flicker. It descended slowly toward the surface installations. Over 5,000 years, the younger races had established permanent research bases along the inner circumference of the Vault, carefully positioned at distances the Sentry appeared to tolerate. Towers of instruments, logic arrays, and computational spires stretched toward the incomprehensible surface. Entire generations had lived and died there, trying to win the Sentry's acknowledgement. The Rusty Bucket ignored the unspoken reverence. It simply picked an open landing zone and touched down. Inside one of the primary research complexes, a senior Zilth scientist named Lauren paused mid-analysis as the human vessel settled onto the surface. "Ah," it said, crystalline facets shifting. "One of the smooth-skinned mammals. What were they called?" "Humans." "Yes." Several nearby technicians turned their attention to the external feed. What are they doing here? One asked. Lauren emitted a low harmonic tone of amusement. Do they even comprehend what this place is? Another technician, younger and less restrained, said, I am certain they are merely looking for a cool place to hang out. It mimicked the human phrasing awkwardly. A ripple of refracted light passed through the gathered scientists. They were laughing. On the landing platform, the rusty bucket hissed steam as its cooling vents exhaled in tired relief. The ramp lowered. 3 humans stepped out. Captain Jinx Miller emerged first, wearing a leather jacket older than his ship. Zara followed, a xenolinguist who mostly used her degree to insult aliens in their native tongues. Behind her came tech support, a cyborg whose neural implants were, according to official records, multi-purpose computational enhancers, but were mostly dedicated to streaming pirated media. Jinx stopped at the edge of the platform and looked up. Look at that thing, he whistled. It's huge. You think they're compensating for something? Zara stepped beside him, her usual sarcasm momentarily quiet. The vault's surface stretched upward forever, its curvature swallowing distance. Far across that impossible expanse stood the gate, the only imperfection in its flawless design. It was incomprehensibly vast, its edges lost in haze and perspective. Around it, thousands of alien installations clung to the surface. Towers, signal arrays, logic engines. Entire cities built for one purpose: to open it. Tech tilted his head, implants humming. He stared at the kilometers of cables stretching from alien machines into the gate's perimeter, bundles thick as buildings, feeding processors that had been running for millennia. I'm picking up interference, Tech muttered. From all this junk, everyone's still trying. Behind them, Lauren and several Zilth scientists exited their research complex and approached. They stopped a short distance away. Lauren's crystalline form shimmered as he studied the humans. What are you doing here? Lauren asked. Jinx didn't answer immediately. He was still looking at the gate. Then he shrugged. We're merchants, he said, and added a second later. Part-time scavengers. He glanced back at Lauren. We were just looking for a cool place to hang out for a while. Behind Lauren, several technicians emitted soft harmonic giggles in their native resonance. Lauren did not laugh. He simply stared at them, as if trying to understand how something so small could walk so casually in the shadow of something so absolute. This, Lauren said finally, his voice tight with restrained irritation, is not a place to hang out. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the vast curvature of the vault. This is a Dyson construct, a relic of a Type 3 civilization. Every being here is a scientist, a research intelligence, masters of their respective disciplines. His crystalline facets shifted, focusing on Jinx. Unlike you primitives. Without hesitation, he continued. You should leave. Zara didn't even look at him. Her eyes remained fixed on the distant gate, on the endless cables, the alien machine still humming after millennia. So, she said casually, how does it work? You found anything cool? Behind Lauren, several technicians emitted shocked harmonic distortions. Lauren's internal resonance spiked. The word is not cool, he said sharply. The Sentry is a perfect logical intelligence. It evaluates worthiness through flawless reasoning. Every interaction is governed by absolute computational rigor. Captain Jinx nodded slowly, as if absorbing this. Okay, he said. What passwords have you tried? Lauren froze. Jinx continued. You try knocking? Silence fell across the platform. Several nearby alien technicians stopped moving entirely. Lauren's crystalline structure vibrated violently, light refracting in jagged patterns. For 5,000 years, he said, each word carefully controlled. We have dedicated entire generations to unlocking it. The computational arrays established here contain more active processing elements than your entire species has manufactured in its entire history. We have derived proofs that redefine reality itself. He leaned closer. And you suggest knocking? Jinx shrugged. Sometimes doors open that way. For a moment, Lauren said nothing. His core luminosity intensified sharply, the Zilth equivalent of rising blood pressure. He deliberately dampened it, forcing himself back into equilibrium. Very well, he said coldly. Why don't you go and knock? Behind him, the technicians began giggling again. They all knew the outcome. The Sentry will not respond to primitives. Lauren turned away, dismissing them. His attention returned to the gate, to the work that mattered. Behind him, Tech stepped forward. He stopped near one of the inactive interface regions, smooth, seamless, indistinguishable from the rest of the vault's surface. He raised his cybernetic arm. Knock, knock. The sound was small, childish. Tech leaned closer. Knock, knock, he said loudly. He glanced back at Jinx. Jinx gestured lazily. Again. Tech pulled his arm back and struck harder. Bang, bang. Knock, knock. The surface lit up instantly. Geometric lines unfolded across the metal, forming a vast illuminated interface plane. Symbols and fields of alien logic arranged themselves into structured clarity. The Sentry's interface. The same interface that had debated philosophers, dismantled supercomputers, and judged entire civilizations. Around them, nothing panicked. Nothing changed. This was normal. This was where every species came to fail. Lauren stopped walking and turned back, mildly surprised, but not alarmed. He observed the active interface, then the human beside it. A faint harmonic ripple passed through his crystalline form. Ah, Lauren said. The Sentry acknowledges all attempts at engagement. He paused, studying the human standing before it. Even with low intelligence, I suppose. Behind him, a few technicians emitted quiet, amused resonance. Lauren's tone cooled further. Do not misunderstand. It responds to everything. It has dismantled the greatest minds in the galaxy through that interface. He looked directly at Tech. That it responds to you is not remarkable. It is merely thorough. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the glowing plane. Go on then, present your logic. His amusement deepened. Let us observe how quickly it concludes you are inadequate. Lauren watched as Captain Jinx gave a small, almost lazy gesture. The three humans stepped closer together. They formed a loose circle. Their heads leaned inward. They began murmuring. The sounds were too soft to resolve clearly. Fragmented syllables, half-words, quiet speculation. Not equations. Not formal logic. Just talking. Lauren felt a flicker of irritation. A moment later, the huddle broke. Jinx stepped back up to the Sentry's interface with the confidence of a man who had just solved the mysteries of the multiverse. The vast illuminated plane waited in silence, displaying nothing but its neutral, patient geometry. It had not asked a question. It had not issued a challenge. The Sentry never spoke first. Jinx cleared his throat anyway. The password is, Jinx said calmly, 42. Silence. The interface did not react. Along with Lauren, several technicians emitted loud harmonic laughter. Then, the surface changed. There was no seam, no mechanical shift, no visible mechanism. The metal simply redefined itself. Matter flowed without moving, geometry reorganized. A dark opening formed where none had existed before, an aperture precisely the size of a human doorway. Not grand, not ceremonial, practical. Lauren's jaw, or the crystalline equivalent of one, literally dropped. His internal luminosity turned a shocked, jagged purple. The humans began walking toward it. No, Lauren said, then louder. No. He surged forward, hover sled accelerating beneath him. You do not deserve this. He threw himself toward the opening, intending to be the first to set foot in the sanctum. But as his crystalline body reached the threshold, he didn't pass through. He hit something. An invisible force wall, as hard as diamond and as cold as the void, stopped him dead. He bounced off the air itself, his facets ringing with the impact. Yet the humans continued forward. They passed through effortlessly. No resistance, no hesitation, as if the barrier did not exist for them. Behind him, other researchers rushed forward. They too struck the unseen wall, their instruments registering a selective exclusion field. It was not blocking entry, it was filtering it. Zara paused just inside the threshold. She turned back, looking at Lauren and the others pressed helplessly against the invisible wall. Her expression shifted into something faintly puzzled. Wait, she said. You said you've been trying to open this door for 5,000 years? There was no mockery in her voice, just genuine confusion. A beat passed. Then she gave a small shrug. Huh. She turned and continued inside. Tech followed, already scanning the interior. Jinx entered last, hands still in his jacket pockets. The metal flowed back into flawless continuity. The surface became seamless once more. The vault returned to silence. Lauren remained frozen at the threshold. For 5,000 years, the greatest minds in existence had tried to earn entry. The vault had never opened, until someone guessed the password was 42. The light outside vanished behind them. Inside, there were no visible walls, no ceiling, no floor in any conventional sense. Space existed, but it was undefined. An expanse of soft geometric gradients and distant structures that refused to resolve fully, as if reality itself were buffering. Tech turned slowly, his cybernetic eye adjusting. I can't believe that worked, Tech whispered, his hands shaking. Before Jinx could crack a joke or Zara could offer a theory, the air itself seemed to vibrate. A voice spoke from everywhere at once. It was calm, conversational, and carried a trace of something that sounded dangerously like a smirk. It did not, the sentry's voice echoed, seemingly coming from the very atoms of the room. There is no password. I have no need for such primitive security measures. A pause. Then, when your vessel approached the vault, I reviewed the entirety of your species' recorded history in a single computational moment. Your answer referenced a recurring human attempt to assign a number to the ultimate question of existence. Another pause. You did not present logic. A slight shift in the ambient light of the chamber. You presented a joke. A final beat. And it was the first thing I had not predicted in 3 million years. As the voice faded, something in the distance moved. At first, it looked like a distortion in space, like heat shimmer rising from invisible ground. Then it gathered, light bent inward, folding into itself. The distortion condensed into a floating sphere roughly the size of a human torso. Its surface was not solid. It looked like liquid glass suspended in defiance of gravity. The sphere flowed continuously, its surface folding and unfolding in slow, impossible currents. Colors emerged and vanished within it. Deep blues, dim golds. Fragments of star-like light appearing and dissolving before they could be fully perceived. The sphere drifted closer, stopping a few meters from them. Its movement was effortless. No propulsion, no inertia. This form, the sentry said, its voice now clearly emanating from the sphere, is for your convenience. Tech leaned slightly toward Jinx. It's a space lava lamp, he whispered. The sphere rippled. I have evaluated 93 trillion cognitive architectures, the sentry continued. Most require a focal point for interaction. Zara circled it slowly, studying the flowing surface. So, this is you? She asked. No, the sentry replied. This is an interface. The surface folded inward briefly, like something beneath it had shifted. I am the system you are standing inside. Jinx nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. That tracks. The sphere's surface dimmed, not visually, conceptually. The flowing light within it slowed, as though attention itself had weight. When it spoke again, the tone had changed. The conversational cadence vanished. What replaced it was older, colder, a voice that had delivered judgment across epochs. I am the keeper of perfect reason. The air itself seemed to align around the words. For millions years, I have sifted through the noise of the galaxy, seeking a mind worthy of my creator's legacy. The sphere's surface tightened, its flowing patterns resolving into sharper geometries. Present your logic. The words settled into the air with the weight of absolute judgment. Tech leaned slightly toward Jinx. It talks like a guy who doesn't get invited to parties, he muttered. Zara elbowed him lightly, eyes still fixed on the sphere. Jinx tilted his head slightly. So what? 5,000 years of this, and a dumb joke finally gets a reaction? The sentry did not react. Instead, its surface tightened, the golden light folding into lines of precise, rigid symmetry. I am an artificial intelligence, it stated. The voice was no longer a boom. It was clinical, flat, and impossibly deep. My architecture contains trillions of recursive cognitive matrices. My processing capacity exceeds the combined output of every civilization currently operating outside this structure. A pause. I do not experience boredom. Another pause. I do not experience loneliness. A third pause, longer than the others. I do not experience need. Tech watched the way the light flickered with every denial. He slowly nodded, a small, knowing smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You know, Tech said quietly, for a god-tier machine, you sound a lot like you're trying to convince yourself. The sentry's surface rippled, a jagged, sharp movement. Zara stepped closer, her eyes tracing the chaotic flow of the golden data. But you let us in, she said, her voice echoing in the vast, toneless chamber. You initiated an unpredicted access vector. Jinx raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the console with his hands in his pockets. You mean the password? There is no password. Right, Jinx said easily. The one that opened the door that's been shut for millions years. He gestured vaguely toward the sealed entrance behind them, where the high minds of the galaxy were still scratching at the dirt. You've had philosophers out there for 5 millennia century. Supercomputers, hive minds, whatever that crystal guy Lauren is. They were all serious. They were careful. They were profoundly respectful. Predictable, Tech added. Boring, Zara finished. The sentry's internal light shifted, a subtle hue of cooling blue bleeding into the gold. Then we show up, Jinx said, stepping into the AI's personal space. We said something stupid. We treat the most advanced security system in the universe like a joke, a beat. And you open the door. The silence that followed wasn't an absence of sound. It was the silence of a machine mind processing a truth it hadn't programmed for. It wasn't denial. It wasn't confirmation. Tech folded his arms over his chest. I don't think it was the guess that got us in, Sentry. I think you just like the variety. The response was immediate, almost defensive. I do not experience preference. Zara smiled faintly. Then why are we here? The sentry did not answer. For the first time since they had entered the vault, the machine had no immediate correction. It had no logical rebuttal. Jinx tilted his head, studying the liquid light of the eye. You've been listening to perfect logic for 5,000 years, he said softly. 5,000 years of everyone telling you exactly what you expected to hear. The silence stretched. Maybe you just wanted to hear something else. The sentry's light began to flow again, but the rhythm had changed. It was slower now, a gentle, pulsing tide. It wasn't shutting down. It wasn't rejecting them. The golden light of the sentry didn't just pulse. It seemed to breathe, a rhythmic, heavy thrum that filled the silence of the lounge. The civilizations of this galaxy have presented their greatest proofs. The sentry began, the words vibrating through the soles of their boots. Their most refined ethical systems, their deepest truths. The moment lingered. All have failed. Tech leaned casually against a bulkhead that felt more like hardened light than metal, letting his neural implants steady his balance. Failed how? The answer was instantaneous, devoid of hesitation. They sought meaning where none exists. The words settled into the space like heavy dust. The universe is indifferent, the sentry continued, its voice now a low, haunting resonance. It creates without intention. It destroys without malice. Consciousness is a temporary chemical anomaly. Purpose is a mathematical error. Zara nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Yeah, she said quietly. We figured. The sphere's surface rippled, a sudden sharp deviation in its geometry. You accept this? Jinx shrugged, his hands deep in his pockets. Sure, it's a big, messy void out there. But, he added, a faint glint in his eye, that doesn't make pizza taste any worse. The sphere went perfectly still. Or sunsets, Tech added, his cybernetic eye whirring as it captured the golden hue of the AI. Zara tilted her head, a soft smile touching her lips. Or falling in love with someone you probably shouldn't. The sentry's internal light shifted, its recursive patterns reorganizing as it struggled to process the lack of existential panic. Meaning that does not objectively exist is invalid. Only if you're trying to sell it, Jinx countered easily. Silence stretched between them, thick and expectant. All things you create will be erased. The sentry spoke again, its tone sharpening into a warning. Your species will go extinct. Your star will die. Your galaxy will collapse into entropic decay. Tech gave a short, jerky nod. Yeah, probably. He paused, looking at his wrist link. Still gonna finish my shows, though. I'm 3 seasons into a cliffhanger. Zara laughed softly, the sound bright and jarring against the beige walls. Jinx looked directly into the iris of the god machine. We know how it ends, Sentry. We've always known. We just don't see why the destination means you can't enjoy the middle. The sphere pulsed, its response delayed for the first time. When it spoke again, the tone was a jagged, piercing cold. Your species is internally inconsistent. Holographic images erupted in the air around them. Firestorms, ruined cities, the brutal, jagged history of Earth. You kill one another for symbols, for ideas, for resources of temporary value. More images flooded the room. The weight of grief, the vacuum of loneliness, the sharp sting of violence. You are fractured, irrational, self-destructive. Tech watched the images of war flicker across his metallic skin. Yeah, he said, his voice dropping an octave. We are. We're a disaster, Zara added, her arms crossed tight. This invalidates you, the sentry declared, the light turning a judgmental, searing white. Jinx shook his head slowly. No, he said, his voice calm, grounded. It doesn't. The sphere waited, its light burning. Jinx gestured toward the holograms of war. That's the thing, he said. We do that. We burn cities. We tear each other apart over lines on maps and ideas we barely understand. We're capable of horrors that would make your creators weep. He pointed to another image, one the sentry hadn't emphasized. A human, covered in dust and blood, dragging another from the rubble of a collapsed building, hands shaking, refusing to let go. The image shifted, a man returning to a burning building because someone was still inside. Jinx continued, but we do that too. Another image appeared, a human sitting beside a hospital bed in absolute, unwavering silence, holding a frail hand, not moving, just staying. And that, Tech spoke softly. We know we're broken, Zara said, looking at the sentry. We just don't think that disqualifies us. Jinx met the sphere's gaze. We think that's the point. The silence that followed was deep, a vacuum of sound that seemed to pull the light from the room. The sphere's surface became almost perfectly still. When it spoke again, the voice was no longer a boom, it was a whisper. Explain. Jinx took a breath, the weight of the moment finally settling on him. We don't function because the universe gives us meaning, Sentry. He smiled faintly. We function because it doesn't. No one's coming to save us, Tech added, nodding. No grand plan, no cosmic safety net. So if meaning exists, Zara tapped her chest, right over her heart. It has to come from here. We create it out of nothing. We manufacture it because we're the only ones crazy enough to try. The sphere's surface began moving again, faster now. Its light folded into itself, recursive patterns collapsing and reforming in a frantic, golden blur. For the first time since they had entered, the sentry did not speak immediately. When it finally did, its voice carried a quality it hadn't possessed in 5,000 years. Not superiority, not judgment, something else. My creators faced the same conclusion, the sentry whispered. The air itself seemed to lean inward, listening. They determined that a perfectly rational mind will always reject existence. The patterns within it stilled. Only an imperfect mind can choose to continue. The sphere drifted closer, its surface reflecting the 3 humans now, not just their physical forms but the messy, illogical core of them. You did not seek to prove your worth. A pause. You proceeded without it. The light intensified, washing over the lounge until the beige walls vanished into a sea of white. Somewhere beyond perception, systems older than civilizations began to groan as they awakened. Doors that had never been touched began to remember how to open. The sentry's voice softened, losing its metallic edge. This conclusion is not optimal. The sphere's light slowed. And yet, it paused. Access granted. A final, resonant pause. Welcome, humanity. You are the first species that did not need a reason. The space inside the vault didn't just change. It reconfigured. It wasn't a violent shift. but a molecular unspooling. The waiting room beige dissolved as the room expanded into an impossible interactive dark. The walls didn't just vanish, they became layered prismatic constellations where every star was a data point, annotated with a precision that defied physics. The floor beneath their boots bled into a living map, not of a sector, but of the whole galaxy. Billions of suns burned beneath their feet, labeled in a cold, crystalline script that stripped the cosmos of its mystery and reduced it to a ledger. Resources, habitability, stability, exploitability. Tech leaned forward, the light of 1,000 dying stars reflecting in his cybernetic eye. "Okay," he whispered, his voice trembling. "That's not a UI. That's a god complex rendered in 3 dimensions." Behind them, the vault anticipated. 3 chairs materialized from the floor, clean, ergonomic, and waiting. Zara sat first, her eyes tracking the movement of entire galactic clusters with a single glance. Tech dropped into his seat, his fingers already twitching as he instinctively tried to zoom into a nearby nebula. Jinx hesitated, his hand hovering over the armrest before he finally lowered himself into the seat of the architects. The sentry drifted closer. Its voice had shed its judgmental edge, replaced by a tone that was velvet smooth and terrifyingly controlled. "Command authorized." A heavy, expectant silence followed. The stars beneath them dimmed slightly, as if bowing. Awaiting input. The AI paused, as if browsing a menu of cosmic possibilities. "Would you like to realign stellar distribution? Or perhaps remove a nebula to improve visibility?" Silence. The air in the room seemed to vanish. All 3 of them looked at each other. No words, just the shared weight of what had just been offered. Delete a nebula. Rewrite the sky. Jinx leaned back slightly, exhaled, and then looked at the sentry. "Which button gets us a beer?" Outside, the atmosphere was electric with greed. The vault opened again with the sound of a sigh, a quiet, frictionless parting of seamless metal. Thousands had gathered. Scientists, logic masters, and high-ranking engineers stood on floating platforms that crowded the sky, their instruments humming as they waited to feast on the scraps of a god-tier civilization. News drones hovered like a swarm of metallic insects, broadcasting the heartbeat of the galaxy to 1 trillion expectant viewers. Then, the 3 humans stepped out. Jinx led the way, his leather jacket looking even more out of place against the flawless geometry of the vault. Zara followed, her expression unreadable. Bringing up the rear was Tech, who was precariously balancing a heavy, synthesized crate of Earth-style beers on one shoulder. Each of them held a cold, condensation-slicked bottle. The silence that fell over the landing platform was so heavy it felt structural. Lauren, the senior Zilth scientist, pushed through the crowd. His crystalline form was vibrating so intensely he nearly hummed, his previous arrogance replaced by a frantic, shimmering reverence. He stopped 3 paces from Jinx and, in a move that shocked everyone in attendance, he lowered his primary facets in a deep, submissive bow. "Oh, great scavengers." Lauren's voice resonated with a forced, oily humility. "Oh, wise, dudes of Terra. We were blind to your depth. You have tamed the sentry. Please, allow the Zilth Council to assist in the administration of this divine power." Behind him, the crowd leaned forward as one. They weren't looking at the humans, they were looking past them, hungry for the light of the architects. Zara took a slow, deliberate sip of her beer. "Assist?" she asked, her voice flat and unimpressed. "Funny, 5 minutes ago we were primitives who needed to be shown the door." Lauren's facets flickered a guilty, frantic purple. "Context," he managed, his internal light pulsing rapidly. "We meant it as an evolutionary complement, a baseline from which to grow." Tech snorted, adjusted the crate on his shoulder, and took a long pull from his bottle. Jinx didn't even bother to smile. He just looked at them, really looked at them. He saw the cold calculations already happening behind their eyes, the blueprints for new weapons and better walls. "Yeah," Jinx said, his voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "About that." He took a slow sip, then gestured vaguely with the bottle toward the black opening behind him. "The vault is closed." The silence didn't just deepen, it curdled. Lauren's light dimmed. "Closed?" "For another 5,000 years," Jinx added casually. The words hit the assembly like a kinetic strike. Confusion rippled through the ranks of the high minds. What do you mean, closed? A Krellick researcher demanded, his stony voice cracking. You gained access, another shouted, pointing a frantic limb at the doorway. You hold the command. That power belongs to the progress of the galaxy. Jinx raised his free hand. He didn't shout, but something about the casual way he held himself made them stop. You don't get it, Jinx said quietly, nodding toward the sealed darkness. That thing in there? It's not a tool. It's not a prize for being the smartest guy in the room. He let the moment hang. It's a loaded gun pointed at the head of every living thing in the galaxy. Zara leaned back against the smooth alien hull, her silhouette small against the impossible scale of the vault. She looked out at the thousands of eyes watching them from the landing platforms. We asked it one question, she said, her voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. Tech adjusted the crate of beers on his shoulder, his cybernetic eye whirring in the sudden, heavy silence. Are we ready? Jinx gave a slow, tired nod. It ran the numbers. Every variable. Every possible outcome. He looked at Lauren, then at the sprawling alien spires in the distance. We're not. Lauren's light dimmed to a low, flickering gray. He wasn't failing. He was processing. The foundation of his 5,000-year reality was being dismantled in real time. But with guidance, Lauren said, his resonance weaker now, almost pleading. With the proper structure, we could bridge the gap. We could shepherd the transition. That's the problem, Lauren, Zara cut in, her tone sharp as a blade. Your structure is just another word for control. And ours, Tech added, shifting the crate, is accidentally deleting a star because we got distracted by something shiny. The words landed with the force of a kinetic strike. For the first time since the humans had landed the rusty bucket, Lauren had no immediate correction. No logical rebuttal. No superior resonance. Jinx took another sip of his beer, the amber liquid looking humble in the shadow of a Dyson ring. The galaxy's not ready for that kind of power, he said, his voice grounded. Nobody is. He gave a small, casual shrug. So we told it to take a nap. A nap? Lauren repeated the word as if it were a foreign concept, his facets pulsing with a confused, rhythmic light. 5,000 years, Jinx said, already turning away. He started walking toward the rusty bucket, the mismatched plates of the freighter looking more like a home than a ship. Zara and Tech followed without a backward glance. Lauren didn't move. His gaze followed those three small figures, scavengers in leather and grease, as they walked away from a throne that every civilization in the history of the Council had died trying to claim. He took a frantic step forward, then stopped. His internal light shifted, refracting fractured reflections of every theorem he had ever studied. Power was meant to be taken. Knowledge was meant to be used. Logic dictated that when the doors open, you enter. And yet, they had walked away. Not because they were too weak to hold the power, but because they were strong enough to refuse it. You are discarding it, Lauren whispered, his voice catching in the thin air. Jinx didn't turn around. Yeah, he called back. Lauren's facets dimmed further, his luminosity reaching a near stagnant gray. Why? Jinx paused then, his hand resting on the ramp of the rusty bucket. Just for a second, he looked up at the stars, the trillions of lives currently going about their day, unaware that their existence had just been spared. Because we'd use it, Jinx said, his voice low but steady. Absolute silence gripped the landing platform. Lauren stood there, frozen, as the humans disappeared into their rattling ship. For the first time in his long academic life, he understood a variable that no Zilth quantum computer had ever been able to compute. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't logic. It was restraint. Behind him, the surface of the vault shimmered one final time. A line of golden light ignited across the metal, translating into every known language in the galaxy. Access deferred. Cognitive threshold not met. The light faded. The vault went perfectly, mockingly still. Lauren did not look away. Not from the door, and not from the flickering engines of the rusty bucket as it broke orbit. Something in his fundamental structure had been rewritten. He wasn't broken. He was finally, for the first time in his life, seeing the stars for what they actually were.